Retail Podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Rezvan Viennet.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Retail Podcast. Today I'm interviewing someone who I admire greatly and have a heck of a lot of respect for, because I definitely want to share Louise's, who you'll meet in a minute, her perspective on retail and the coaching that I've received or some of the words of guidance on why I wanted to come and work for Louise in the UK. I found it was quite personal, quite passionate, and quite genuine. And I think right now we need those skills in the leaders that we have within the retail business. So without any further ado, Louise, hello and welcome.
Hello, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
So listen, Louise, thank you so much for coming and appearing on the podcast. This is going to be a bit of a nuanced podcast because I know a lot of people who listen to this and who work for you, well, these are the types of questions they would want to ask you if given a chance, because I appreciate you have a management team and then you have a whole wide cross sector of people that you work with. And I know you do a lot of coaching anyway. So what I'd love to do, because you, maybe for the people that don't know you, if you could just give a brief overview of, what you do at Microsoft and who you are.
Yeah, of course. And this is probably one for my parents because they're always asking me, what do I do? So I look after retail, consumer goods, travel, transport and hospitality for Microsoft in the UK. And what that means is I actually work in our enterprise commercial part of the business, looking after the people that serve our enterprise customers in those industries. I've been actually at Microsoft for years now. So done a number of different roles. I think this obviously has to be my funnest role, and certainly, pretty challenging as well this year. But look, that's what keeps me excited and out of bed every morning.
Yeah, well, the two questions that come up from that. When you left, was Microsoft a place that you wanted to end up, or was it one of those happy accidents or serendipitous accidents?
I think it was one of those accidents, actually. Do you know what? When I left university, I remember thinking I just want to work in a creative industry. And so I moved to London and I actually interviewed with a lot of design companies. And my first position was a partner's PA, a design company. And it was in London and I loved it because I worked with lots of different creative people. And so I thought that was my trajectory. But I think what I found out was I enjoyed the creativity side and problem solving. And through the various discussions, the people I met along the way, and actually that business that I started and actually invested in me doing the Chartered Institute of Marketing degree. Through that, I met a lot of different people and obviously got that under my belt and then found myself at Microsoft. And it was a pleasant accident 17 years ago.
Fantastic. Never looked back since. You mentioned also that and obviously it's November, so we're still in lockdown in the UK. It must have been, and you're fairly newish into this role. I think probably 4 months before you joined. Has it been 12 months now? You've been in this role 12 months?
Literally just over 12 months,
Yeah. So how has, forgetting the last 12 months, because I think you've probably lived 7 lives in the last 9 months. How has the last 9 months been for you?
The last 9 months?
Yeah, specifically COVID.
COVID, okay. God, it doesn't, you know what? I know it should seem that long, but it doesn't feel that long actually, because I think we've learned so much in the last 9 months. I keep thinking it's about 3. I think for me, I think it's been challenging to see just how tough it is actually on the industry that we serve, in all honesty. But the good thing is I've never spent so much time with customers as well at the same time, because I think technology's played quite a large role in actually kind of helping sort of businesses continue to function and serve obviously their customers and their consumers. So I think I probably never felt as useful, which is always good, isn't it? I think in this industry, but I think, my heart's actually really genuinely gone out to the customers that we work with, because it's very challenging. People are having to dig deep in terms of really thinking business models, new routes to market, really thinking about, who their consumer is and how they're managing expectations. And ultimately, and I think probably more importantly, how they're looking after their people within their business and how they continue to engage. So I think it's been really challenging. I think we've all got a lot of learnings from it. And as a result, I think we'll be stronger and better. But we're still going through, obviously, a really difficult time. But personally, I felt I've learned a huge amount, but obviously would never wish this on anybody ever again.
Understood. You must spend a lot of time with CEOs and the C-suite within the retail world. Are there any shared problems that you've seen? Are there any sort of commonalities in the challenges that people have had over the last sort of 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think in retail in particular, I mean, even prior to the 9 months, I think we were in a challenging spot as an industry as a whole, and obviously I include us in that, because we all knew we had to transform. I think the C-suite all knows that they need to transform in terms of differentiation of their business, the disruption they're having to manage as part of the new entrants into the market. And also, generally the consumer behaviour that kind of continues to evolve, just as a general rule of thumb. So I think that's probably if I think about what I've been discussing at C-suite, it's really around, how do you manage and interpret that type of disruption in the market? So thinking about consumer personalization, the level of relevance, the products and solutions you bring to market. But actually, even if I do that, is it going to be good enough to get me to the next stage? And so therefore, I think the majority of the time that I spend with customers, and actually kind of even pre-COVID, was really thinking about new business models and routes to market. But what the last 9 months has done is to sort of accelerate that in terms of those efforts. So
Understood. You mentioned morale, and one of the things that I do love working for Microsoft, but more specifically within your team, is the fact that the empathy really comes through, and the empathy that you have in terms of the tough time that people are going through right now. Is there any sort of things you can share in terms of the way that you manage in terms of keeping people's morale up during this period and possibly going forward? Because as I said, we are still in lockdown here, and morale is a massive thing across the industry as well as for us. Any things that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just very aware that times like these affect everybody in very different ways, right? And it could be depending on what we're going through currently, outlook on life, personality type, just everything. There are so many different factors, which means that every individual will have a different experience and experience it differently and interpret things differently. So what I'm very aware of is, how do you ensure that you keep everybody motivated without that kind of dreaded one size fits all? So I think now is actually you're never actually going to achieve true happiness across your entire organization all at the same time, because I think, like I said, everybody evolves and moves and adapts in different ways. But what I think is important, what I personally do, is I take the time to literally lean in, speak to people, listen, because often it's just about listening and hearing what people are saying, obviously two very different things, and then really thinking about how you're responding. And sometimes, so what I would say actually is, at a group level, I think we've got something called the Culture Club actually, which means that we can take lots of different ideas from people across different kind of product groups, etc., to really come up with some different ideas on how to engage, have a sense of fun, thinking about, rather than just meeting after meeting after meeting, how can you do sessions like this, which is like podcasts? How can you learn better? You don't always have to be in front of your screen. I think the other day, well, actually, you and I were on the meeting where we organised more of a podcast session, and it was sort of grab your coat, grab your flask, and then headphones, and then head off out for a walk. And that's really important. And not everybody's going to be able to do that. And actually, that day, I don't know if you remember, but it absolutely chucked it down.
It was raining.
Hadn't quite factored that into the plan. So I think in the morning, I turned it into, sit down with your kids, unload the dishwasher, put a couple of washes in, whatever you need to do to make your life that bit easier. But then just tune in and listen and absorb. And And so I think the theory behind that is, at a group level, think about, how you can relate, have some downtime. Everybody knows what they need to do. So how are you still building that team and that kind of community spirit, and everybody's kind of leaning in and to help each other? I think also it's really thinking about different ways, different things that people respond to. Not everyone will want to go off for a walk. Some people just want time back with the family. Not everyone's going to want to do that quiz. Someone's going to just want to have a nice little hamper and have a, cream tea all to themselves. Big plane outside, sorry.
It's okay.
Cream tea all to
I
themselves.
often wonder,
right?
where do you live? Where do you live?
And
Do
spend
you live like
time.
anywhere near the Heathrow Airport?
No, very near Briars Norton actually, which has probably come a little bit more busy since lockdown. So it's that, but also I think what's really important, because we often try to think things at a group level, is just speaking to people individually as well. And I would say, spend and make the time. No matter how small, even if it's just for 5 minutes, it's on instant messages, on a call or whatever. And I think that also helps because, I know for me, I just want somebody to hear and listen what I'm saying and helping and solving things. And actually, there is one more last point, if you don't mind, Ali. So I think it's the morale and what we're doing. But at the same time, we don't always have to focus on morale necessarily. We actually also have to focus on how we can change and adapt and support people through making business more simple. So how are you as a leader helping your people to unblock, certain barriers to success? And actually, sometimes that actually really boosts morale as well. But sometimes, in this type of environment, it always
you feel that you're
marry
making
together.
progress. Yeah. Is there anything that comes to your mind that like you're the most proud of over the last sort of reflecting over the last year? Are there any sort of areas that you're proud of?
Yeah,
It can be work in progress, just to give you an out.
Do you know what look, I'm personally really, I'm proud of my team day in, day out. And I think the amount of time that they're spending with customers, just trying to help, lean in, listen and learn, is what I'm most proud of. Okay. So that's definitely number one. And then I think secondly, I'm proud of myself because hopefully I do the same as well. Because, and actually I love it. I really enjoy it. I get a huge amount from it. And that's definitely the best part of my day. So, really proud of that. I think I am proud actually of Microsoft in terms of how Microsoft supports the people, their people, leaders, managers, employees, etc. Everybody, feeling connected and put a huge amount of importance behind that. When you're working in a hybrid environment, it's still, it's still different how we've been working, even if we do still a lot of our calls online and mobile. We're very used to this. It still is a different setting. It's a different environment because you just simply can't do certain things. And I think Microsoft have really rallied around to really think about culture and not being a casualty of this. How do you collaborate better, really focus on mental well-being, focusing on learning and development, and really focusing on also unblocking things again, to support our customers in this challenging time. So I think I'm really proud of that, and I'd like to think I've been a pretty good mum and wife, but that's also because that's what does actually get me out of bed every morning. So strive to continue to be a better one every day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, look, as I said up front, the one thing I know that I'll get from you is honesty, right? There are, and that's the most important. Well, that's one of the most important characteristics I think that, and it's interesting in terms of honesty and empathy. Have you always been empathetic? Is that something that, do you feel like that's one of your superpowers?
I'd like to think it is, but I think I'm very lucky that I had a really nice upbringing, right? Very family orientated. And actually my husband says it actually all the time, that kindness is, the superpower that, everybody should kind of really dig deep and use, especially at this time. But actually kindness is just all encompassing. And actually he always starts his, I think his year groups off as, there are 3 things you need to think about at the start of the year. And he says, be kind, be kind, be kind. And maybe that's, why we're together, okay? Because,
Yeah.
but I think kindness is something that's just, I think I've been very lucky to grow up in. And so, yes,
Yeah.
I would hope that empathy has just been something that's just been part of my DNA. I don't,
Sure.
I deeply care about people, how people, obviously what people think as well at the same time. I always expect to be treated as I expect others, as I, connect with others. I enjoy listening and really understanding people and really thinking about if I'm having a discussion, whether it's, at home, out or at work, that the discussion we're having is very two-sided, so that they get what they want, I get what I want, for example. But yeah, empathy I think is really important. It's very important, I think, just generally in life. And that's, I think, how I get the most enjoyment out of life, because I feel good kind of every day. I mean, it's a great environment to be in. But I think from a work perspective, I think it's really important as well, just simply because we all have very challenging jobs and working environments, and it's important to show empathy, especially at this time.
Understood.
If that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. There's three other areas I just, in terms of, and you can choose what order that you answer them in. But and they're all sort of related to them in terms of words of wisdom. So if I'm a new candidate and I want to come and work for you, what do you look for? Is one question. If I'm in role and I want to progress up, what would your words of wisdom be? And if I'm just starting out in my career and I don't really have a clue, what would you have any sort of, and specifically, let's just be clear on this, specifically lending to female early in career, female managers and people who potentially may want to come and work for you, because that bit's irrelevant of gender, right? And I can imagine anyone would come and work for the retail team in the UK. But in terms of, having that female lens to it for early in career and female managers, what you would, so whatever order you would like to answer those questions in.
Okay. So I'll take the third first, which I think is early in career. Is that right? And then perhaps coming to work. So I always think about this as sort of, talking to my younger self and advice I would give myself. So I think the first thing is, the reality is you first need to convince yourself that you can do a job before you convince your employer. And I hope these suggestions and words of wisdom don't sound basic, but actually it's true. I mean, there were so many positions which I realized I thought, I don't think I quite convinced myself that I could do the job. So how was I ever going to physically get that role? So I think that's really important when you think about convincing others around you. And I would say, in order to understand, how you do a job or whether or not you're right for the job, I think it's really important to think about getting feedback, right? So getting feedback right from sort of day dot is really important. So somebody you trust, somebody that you're working with, could be in a meeting environment, as well as mentoring, whatever, friends, colleagues. Get feedback. Where do you see my strengths? Where could I potentially develop? Any advice you'd give, and then ask yourself those questions at the same time, and then see how they marry up. Because interestingly, what I've found throughout my career is that how I'm perceived is never quite as I think I come across, and I think you need to kind of continue to check yourself. So I think that's number one for me. I think for my younger self, probably the second thing, because otherwise I'll be ages on each of these 3 hours. I would say give yourself a break, like mind break, because I think, and I was talking to somebody actually this morning about this. We've got time. You've got time, right? So you're young, you're learning, you're gathering experience. This is a time to really enjoy your job, really understand about who you are, what you do, what you bring, get that feedback. And just give yourself a break that, you don't have to sort of continue to think, I've got to get this job by this time, or, giving yourself a hard time around milestones. Because actually, do you know what? You'll get that job when it kind of comes to you. And I guess that's why I'd say, to my younger self, give yourself a break, because it probably stressed me out at the time. And I don't think like that now. And so I think that's quite important if you think about that. And then I guess just very quickly, last one, I think, so early in career coming again to this role, if you think about those two things, it's really important that, you have that sense of perspective and self-awareness, because I'm always really impressed by someone, doesn't matter what age they are and what background and jobs they've done or no jobs, is when somebody has that self-awareness and perspective and a sense of direction. And you don't always have to know exactly where you're going, but that's impressive, and that already shows transferable skills. So that's what I would say in terms of early in career, and hopefully you don't think I'm too out of touch. That's definitely what I've said to my younger self. So the next one was, if you're
for managers that wanting to sort of move up or just get some guidance on where they are.
I think managers, it's so I think my advice to managers would be, again, you really need to start thinking about your second, the next role and the role after that. And actually, I know a lot of people, managers, sort of inwardly groan when people say that, but it's important because, again, it comes down to perspective, direction, and where is it you're trying to go? Because actually what happens, obviously, as management is you get, fewer and fewer jobs as you go further up. And so therefore you have to, whether you like it or not, be more deliberate about what you're trying to do and where you're going. And again, if you think about hiring manager, they really need to understand that this is absolutely the role that you want, because it's going to take you, it's going to get you where you want to get to, plus also this is the advancement, longer term. And that's leadership. That's really managing your business. So it's all thinking differently around being a lot more deliberate with that career move, because the hiring manager is going to have to think, one, it's really important that person really, really wants that role. And two, that it's in that kind of grand plan. That obviously shows leadership and ambition. And actually, I'd probably just leave it there as 1 and 2 in that respect. So I would say, hopefully that's given some guidance. I would also say, I think just the second thing is around, I think sometimes managers get a little bit demoralized that certain roles are always earmarked, or there's a slate plan, and there are always slate plans. So the first thing to do is make sure you are on the right slate plan, and you're on the slate plan in line with your career. And that slate plan means working at that slate plan. You have to work on it in terms of your development. And it doesn't matter. Do you know what? Often, if you don't get that job, you'll get another one because you've actually got a slate plan. And the second thing is really just to really think around how you're developing yourself kind of as a leader. What leader do you want to be? Who do you admire? And continuing, a bit like the early career advice that I gave, it's really thinking about what type of leader you are, self-awareness, feedback, perspective, and again, that, self-awareness. So yeah, and I think with the slate plan, I think where I was going with it as well is, even if you're going for a role and you're not on that slate plan, but you're on a slate plan elsewhere, have again that confidence to think, just because the slate plan doesn't always mean that person's going to get the role. And again, that comes back to having the belief you're going to get that role. And I honestly, I can tell you, there's a couple of roles that I didn't get because, one, I interviewed like my life depended on it, because I think at the time I thought it was, and that's why I didn't get the role. And secondly, it was because I don't think I believed that I was the right person for the role. Easy, right? That's 2 reasons why. And then I think the third one, which was your first one, was people coming in. Is that right? So what advice would I give there? So the thing that is incredibly important to me as a leader, but also to Microsoft, and I think to any organization, is you're building a team that serves the community, right? That in terms of your audience, and so it's really important that we build up a diverse team and a diverse set of skills and background, and it's so important for us to have a diverse candidate pool. And I don't mean to be crass when I say candidate pool, but it's really important, because actually what happens is, and actually we've thought a lot about how do you build a job description, how do you build a job spec, so we get as many people as possible from various different backgrounds and skill sets, because otherwise we just don't have the right talent pool to be able to make the right decision. So I would say, perhaps when you qualify yourself out of the role, but you kind of like to do that role, you've really got to ask yourself, why are you qualifying yourself out? And what are you doing about it? LinkedIn's a great source for understanding who is connected with that person. Ping them directly. I get a lot of people pinging me also directly, and I normally respond.
You'll probably get a lot more now that you've said that.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I normally respond. And if not, ping somebody that's in your network that's part of my network. But keep going, because we really need to get the right pool of talent. And I actually don't think we always have that luxury. So like I said, dig deep, understand if you're going to qualify yourself out, don't do it if you just think it's because you're not entirely sure if you can do it. That's quite important. And I think the other thing is that we're going through a very transitional stage, as all industries and all organizations. Therefore, transferable skills is incredibly important. And it's mindset, which is incredibly important. So really think about that, and think about your experience, think about your CV, and really think about how you could rethink moving into different roles where your skill sets could really start to kind of grow and adapt and change the course of where certain industries and technology companies, for example, are going. Because actually that is absolutely what we look for. And I get really excited about that, especially when I start spotting it in an interview stage.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wonderful. I mean, I'm digesting everything you've said. That really lovely in that sense. In terms of the gender challenge, do you feel as a female leader there has been a challenge to that, and or not? I mean, what's been your experience?
Do you know what? When I think growing up, like I said, I had a really nice upbringing. Okay, a great family environment. So, and I had 2 brothers as well, and then my sister came along sort of 7 years later. I guess I never thought of gender inequality, or do you know what I mean? It didn't even feature in terms of the makeup and mindset. And actually, even at school, I did. I remember when I did a cross country race, I was put in the boys' race, just because they didn't have enough runners. But I didn't sort of think, that's good and it's a progress. But anyway, so anyway, I just sort of start with that. But interestingly, I think early on in my career, perhaps because I guess I didn't really feel it either. I think at that time, very early on, I had probably more insecurities about me as a employee than I did whether or not there was gender bias or whatever. So I didn't even sort of think about it then. And actually, the companies I worked for were, I don't know. Interestingly, at the design company, I was partner's PA, but everybody was kind of treated very much as equals. It was very much team sport. I think as I went into different industries, I think it probably became a little bit more apparent. And I think probably more so in some of the sales roles, I came into environments and boardroom meetings where I'd realised perhaps I was the only female, and I thought, but that said, but that of all those times, there were probably only a few occasions where I felt sort of talked over or token or female in the room, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, earlier around training and development, Microsoft do a lot of that, and leadership development as well with people. I remember a bit of training that I had, which is almost like you always need to give yourself a virtual seat at the table. If you're virtually or whatever, in your mind, where's your seat at the table? Are you giving yourself a seat at the table? Yeah. And so actually, when I remember being in some of those meetings, literally sitting at the table, right?
Yeah.
Even when probably I shouldn't have sat at the table, because actually I was playing a supporting role, and actually the people that meant to be part of the discussions, a couple of them had to sit outside, right? But actually, I think what again that gives you the floor, gives you the confidence. So I suppose my way of, sometimes when I felt like there was a little bit of inequality or perhaps talking, I think I just gave my seat at the table, and I don't think we do enough of that. But I think at the same time, I've been very lucky because I've had very kind of strong mentors. I've had great training, and I must have surrounded myself with great and inclusive people and teams. There have been a few occasions though where I think also one-on-one, when I'm meeting I kind of met really senior people, but again, I think sometimes it was me as well, not being quite as confident in what I do and what I deliver. I felt like I had to prove myself probably more than my male colleagues, because I had to sort of talk until they understood that I kind of was relatively intelligent, knew what I was doing and prepared. I felt like I had to do that a little bit longer than some of my male colleagues. And you often get the sort of, talking to your male colleagues before you, and that's just the way, I guess it happened. It wasn't that I sort of laid over and sort of said, that's fine. It's just you kind of accept it and then go, okay, so how am I going to be the change I want to see? And so, and actually, every so often you have reactions to those sort of meetings and you think, that was a bit rubbish and I don't actually ever want to be in that situation again. And I actually normally take the decision just to remove myself and not be in that situation again, or I improve it. And I kind of think about how I can improve in terms of that situation. There was only one time where I was truly shocked. This probably was my last where I went to help somebody in a situation, in an environment with a customer. And that customer was male, and the person that I was helping was male. And actually, I thought I helped get them out of a difficult situation. In fact, the customer kind of asked me to come in to help. And when we came out of the meeting, and I tried to my colleague that I was helping out on behalf of the customer, he said to me, "Do you think he just prefers women?"
Oh God.
And look, and to be fair, I was just really shocked, because I thought I was just shocked because I wouldn't even compute. I didn't even know what to say or how to sort of respond to it. And I said, well, no, because we had a male and female team working with that person. No, because that didn't even cross my mind. I don't think it's crossed their mind either. And I think it was just more because I was, did what I said I was going to do, highly accountable and anyway. So do you know what I mean? It's funny though, because I didn't even know.
Yeah, I think that's
respond.
But I just think it's these predetermined biases and people, and hence why I'm trying to do these shows, to even challenge my own biases, if I'm brutally honest, to keep making me question, because I do find it really difficult to talk about it and to talk about female and gender. These aren't words I use in my everyday vocabulary because I just don't see a difference. And I just know that by talking about it and allowing people to have a platform to listen to other people's experiences, I think has to be able to help. And I have to remain true to that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good. I think, like you say, it's good that you're bringing it up, and I think we're just talking about it.
But it is, and I think it's a personal thing. That's one thing that, and I think that's what you're saying as well, in terms of making sure that it's just it's really tough, because in terms of where you go with it, I don't want to preach to people to do things that they don't want to do, right?
I know. No,
but sorry, go on.
No, well, I was just going to say, look, I think as well, what I've learned is, to your point, I think you don't always have to obviously confront things, but I think you need to reflect, think about how you're going to move, adapt, but also I think you're right. I think you do need to give people that feedback. And I think that's the only way we're going to see things. And some people will accept it, some people don't. But actually, the main thing is, to your point, is we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think if you don't talk about it and you bury it, then people will never improve and it doesn't get better. And that's the thing.
I think we're at a very exciting inflection point where we could really get it right if we were to think about, we're all consumers. So we all know what we like and we don't like. We all are very aware as well that we all have different preferences. Okay.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's so important now, I think, if you think about, I know Satya said it's, the retail is a demand signal in the world, and it's so true. And it's so true today, more so than ever. We've got the chance now to really transform and change the industry and become market leaders. And it's really about getting back to basics and thinking about how you can utilize data, right, to be able to connect better. So we talk a lot about empathy in this podcast. How can we relate better to customers and consumers? How can you deliver on what that individual wants you to deliver on in terms of product and service, feedback, etc. And it's really important now that we think about, there's the data that you have on your consumer, there's the broader perspective data you can glean from the market today, and there's obviously the behavioural data. And I think where we've perhaps historically gone wrong is where we've thought that's just too big, that's a lot of information, there's a lot of detail. What am I going to do with it? Maybe I'll start here. And it is important to start small. But where we're going to differentiate is really thinking about, what are we trying to achieve? How do we want to be different in the market? And then we work back. And actually, if you systematically work back, build out your data, and then really fuel the acceleration of that through technology, you're going to leapfrog the competition and really differentiate. And importantly, will change the face of how UK consumers will consume and purchase products and services from retailers today. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, because, I guess I feel very passionate about it. I know we talk a lot about data, we talk about improving productivity in the supply chain, we talk about investing in the people that know your consumers the best, which are your frontline workers, etc. And there's so many routes to market, but I think we just need to really think about the basics. And actually, I think the retailers that I see are the most successful really start with the consumer, not only because they're a business with a purpose and really thinking about how they're differentiating themselves in the market, but also how they're getting the basics right to be able to continue to build out that loyalty and delight their customer.
In terms of when you talk about when you look at data and technology, are there any examples of people that you see are doing it right, from not necessarily customers of yours, but experiences that you've had or things that you've seen in the market?
Yeah. Do you know what? I had the pleasure of having a roundtable actually at the Telegraph just pre-COVID actually, and Philippe, the CEO from Made.com, was actually talking to us and a number of other retailers. And I hugely admire Made.com because they've got a whole plethora of kind of young or innovative designers, and actually they really use the intelligence they get from their consumers to provide feedback to the designers, but also to really feed to Made.com, what type of design, furniture, etc. they're looking to see. And so it's very much sort of made to order. But what I like is that they really use that feedback. They use it back into the designers. The designers have, if you think about that usual supply chain, you think about how close the designer is to consumer, it's fascinating, really. So I hugely admire how they've transformed, their way that they approach to market, their supply chain, and how they react, but then start to predict their consumer behaviour and fulfil on that. And that's why I think they've been very successful. So I think I really admire someone like a Made.com.
In terms of frontline workers, I know that you spend a lot of time, and there's a lot of good examples of how frontline workers are being empowered right now. Are there any examples that again come to your mind from, because I can just imagine how many examples of frontline worker support you've seen, but again, not necessarily a customer, just out there. Who do you think is doing it right, or are there any examples of people doing it right?
Do you know what? I know I've talked about it before, but still a favourite of mine is still Marks and Spencer's. And you think about, we all love Marks and Spencer's. We all love food, Marks and Spencer's, especially this time of year where I'm starting to think about Christmas. I still feel, in terms of the investment they put behind their brand, the investment to make things remarkable, and therefore the people that they have within store, arming those individuals with the information they need to build like a more connected store, to provide a better experience for the people that come and shop in their stores day in, day out. I think, I hugely admire, because I think Marks and Spencer's always start with the customer quality. They know kind of what they stand for, and they continue to invest in the people that understand their customers the best. So
Sure.
One of my favourites.
That's fantastic. Listen, we've got 5 minutes left. It's coming up to Christmas. Is there anything specifically you want from Santa Claus this year?
I just want a really good red wine. That would be really nice.
Is there a type of, just out of curiosity, is there a type of red that you like, as in country? Is it like a
I
French, a
love a
Spanish,
Malbec.
or a
Malbec.
Malbec?
Uh,
Okay.
It's
Don't
always
worry, I'm not sending any Malbec. Okay.
Argentinian. So I think, yeah, I mean, I love a good Malbec. Do
Okay.
you know what? We're hoping that my stepdaughter can come over from Wales so that we can actually have a family Christmas, so that there's the 4 kids and me and my husband. So actually that would be a great Christmas present.
Yeah.
Normal. I'm just trying to think what actually otherwise. So yeah, I think it's just sort of having a decent family day, and actually I'll probably get it this year as well, because let's face it, we probably won't be going very far.
Yeah.
Just to have a restful, kind of peaceful Christmas period. That's really all I ask for, and making sure that, you know, Santa does not disappoint my kids. That's probably actually the biggest present I would like this year from Santa.
That's fantastic. Well, Louise, thank you so much for carving some time out in the day to talk to us. It's been really great. Lots of nuggets of gold in there for all actually career stages, and I look forward to probably speaking to you tomorrow.
Absolutely,
Or
yeah.
later today.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure.
The Retail Podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Resvan, the